Hey folks, it's Kimberly Crow, and we are here with another episode of the Entrepreneur Experts Cafe. This time I'm here with Rusti Lehay. She is going to be talking about being an expert in writing and publishing books. Welcome, Rusti.
Hi, Kimberly. Thank you so much. Awesome to be here today.
Super glad to have you. So before we get started in the do's and don'ts of book writing and publishing, tell us how you became an expert in this particular area.
Oh, a passion for words that started when I was 10 years old, when my crazy but brave brother-in-law took his wife, his three sons, and his sister-in-law, me at 10 years old, and his mother, there are 20 years between me and my sister, to Mexico on a road trip from Edmonton, Alberta, Canada. And I met all these pen pals along the way. At home, belly down on the farmhouse floor, what do I write? My mother taught me to talk about how the goslings felt in my hand when I had to stuff them in the sock and clothespin them up at the top so they couldn't get out in the middle of the night to go beep, 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 and how to feel their gullet when it was full, that I shouldn't feed them any more milk-soaked bread, and how to teach them to drink upside down because they didn't have a mama and a papa gander and goose to learn that from. I had to dip their bill in the water and flip them like this so they learned how to drink. And so the details, the sounds, the feelings, and she just taught me to pay attention to all those things and put it down on the page. I kept some of those pen pals from 10 years old on into my mid and late 20s.
Wow. Cool idea. I want to know more about the goslings, but I think really let's talk about how to be able to describe things to other people through a book and publishing that. So is this what you teach people to do? Like you have an expertise and you can share it with the world just because you learned something that other people didn't, like how to feed a gosling?
Maybe so, because, it's the details. Like readers are greedy, Kimberly. They want more information. And when we forget to put things down on the page that is in here, because we know it, then the reader goes, well, this is, the silver thread is broken. I have over 45 templates for writers along their journey from having their idea that they want to write a book to finishing their book and publishing, coming from, a New York Times bestselling research that I did, how to get on that list. There's some things you can do to help you along that journey, from the book proposal and the template to just even creating the habit to write, because we often say we don't have time for that. We don't have time for fun. Well, you and I know how to make everything fun, right? Because if it's not fun, it's not worth doing. Your line.
Yep.
So those habits that we can create will get your book done, and you don't need an astronomical holiday away or go to, France to sit down and close yourself up in the Les Deux Mégots, the cafe that Ernest Hemingway wrote in. You can do this from anywhere.
Ooh, I like that. You can do it from anywhere, starting with any story. Is that right?
Any story. Because, if you have lived through something that has been challenging, you have wisdom that somebody out there is waiting for you to share.
That's so true.
And if you have an imagination, you have a fantasy story that's maybe waiting to be born on the page, or a fiction novel. Like there was a doctor that once said to Margaret Lawrence, one of our famous Canadian authors, that, he said, when I retire, I'm going to become a novelist. And she goes, that's interesting. When I retire, I'm going to become a brain surgeon. But the thing is that we can all write. It takes practice. One of my favorite books on writing is Becoming a Writer by Dorothea Brande, written in 1937. And she talks about how we can all get ourselves into that trance-like state to write and trust the muse that it's going to deliver things down your hand onto those 26 unruly gods of the keyboard, or to write by hand, and I can say a lot about writing by hand because there is a connection between the brain.
Is there? I believe that. Let's talk about that. What is that connection?
Okay, so when we write by hand on the page, the vibration of the pen actually calms our parasympathetic nervous system, for one thing. And it connects things in the brain, the neurochemistry, that specific things are happening. So specifically for people who've gone through trauma, they can do some healing. I have some workshops I do, write yourself free of trauma, write yourself free of sexual abuse memories, and, to step into your own power. And there's so many wonderful things, but Dr. Caroline Leaf on Tim Bilyeu's show Impact Theory explains it so well about 36, 37 minutes in about what happens in the brain. And it's so scientific. I'm sorry, I can't really reiterate all of that, but it's amazing the chemistry and the chemicals that fire off when we write by hand.
Well, I think that's really powerful. And I agree. I mean, I'm all about that we are vibrational beings, right? And if we're writing that it is a kinesthetic connection with our brains to be able to, and I like the idea of calming us down to be able to write. And I think that's probably why a lot of people find peace in journaling and things like that.
Mhm.
Do you think journaling is a good place to start if you want to write a book?
It is a very excellent place to start. For one thing, when we journal, we can tell ourselves that nobody has to see this, that we're writing this for ourselves. We are our own audience at first. And then what I do with some of my writers is I train them to find a friendly reader. You do not show it to your husband or wife. You do not show it to your mother, God forbid. It was strange though. My mother, even though she didn't like my content, she admired the writing because she always wanted to be a writer. She didn't want the skeletons portrayed, but she admired the writing. So when we write and when we're first ready to show it to somebody, here's three things you could tell a reader that you need to have them just sit and listen. And then there's two ways they can give feedback that are very calming, gentle, supportive, and will encourage us to continue. One is to say, when you wrote that line about the barn and the dark that the bats flew in and out of, that reminded you of the war when the telegram officer delivered the letter saying that your son had died in the war. That line was so powerful, using the bats as a metaphor because they use radar. What do planes do in war? Radar. So when you use, repeat lines back, like repeat lines back to me that you really liked, and then I'll know, oh, that line is working. Yes.
Got
And
it.
then what? Yeah. And then the lines that they don't say back to you, they might be the little darlings that you might have to let go of because then the chafe will fall away. The other thing that the reader can do for you is to say, I want to know more here. Can you tell me more about this? Because that's a clue to us. Oh, right. That's all in my head. And I just, because I know it so well, because it's my story and my idea, my imagination, I forgot to put it on the page. Between the lines is what the reader will see if you've left something out.
Ooh, that's so powerful. Reading between the lines is something that we all learned how to do from a young age. And now we're doing
Mhm.
it literally. I like that use of the word literally. All right. So,
Yeah.
Rusty, share with us a little bit about when people work with you, what do they get? Where are they in life? Are they just starting to write? Are they thinking that they might have a novel? Are they thinking they might want to write a nonfiction book? And when do they come to you and why?
Mm. Well, I have two templates that I give out to people. If they're writing a memoir, a nonfiction, I have how to write your memoir, how to write your nonfiction. And I'm working on a template of how to approach writing a novel, a fiction novel, because I have so many ideas there as well. From the beginning stages of I've got this idea, or even I don't know what I'm going to write, because I offer stay treats and writers' lounges and events. And if one of them is going to be erotic writing for women July 30th that we offered for the
Nice.
VIP, right?
Yes.
So I work with writers from when they're not sure they're writers to like, I want to write, to people that have come with me with their books finished. And then we just go, and I work differently with them because instead of them bringing a manuscript or giving an electronic document to an editor and then they wait while the editor, does their work with it. And then, I would give, this is years ago, I do this, I'd then give it back to them. And then I'd be waiting for them to find time in their busy lives to go through. Then they'd ask me, what did you mean by this here? And by that time, I'm already with another book, an author, but what did I mean? So create the flow is that I work collaboratively, immersively in the same document in the same time with them, either in my living room or on a Zoom. I've worked with authors from Dubai to Brazil, Spain, Florida, everywhere, pretty much everywhere. So then when I'm there in the document with them, I can say, what exactly did you mean here? What do you want the reader to get from this comment here?
Mm.
Because they will want to know. And when they go, and they like, I lost you, that silver thread is broken. That keeps them
Ooh.
in there.
Okay.
And when we can keep that silver thread intact from the first title, the first word of the title, all the way through the conclusion, you will have a book that will be on the bestseller list.
Ooh, I like that. Okay. Well, that's a goal for a lot of different entrepreneurs and speakers and folks that are out there that want to be bestsellers. There's so many amazing things that can happen once you do have a book. All right. If people want to work with you directly, how can they do that? What's the best way to get in touch with you?
Oh, I'm on all sorts of social media on LinkedIn and Instagram. Facebook, I don't use my last name. I just use Rusty Lee, Lee. But
Mhm.
my website is my first and last name.info. And Rusty spelled with an I, not a Y. So it's a name, not a condition. So.
All right, very cool. All right, and then we unfortunately we are at time, so we are going to let you get back to your day. But before we do you have any final words for our audience?
Trust your first draft. That first
Ooh,
draft has magic in it, Kimberly, because there was something that chose you from the universe, that gave you the life experiences that you had, that gave you the imagination that you have to write that. No one can write what you can the way you do it.
very cool. All right, ladies and gentlemen, this has been another amazing episode. This time with Rusti Lehay, talking about how you can become a best-selling author and how to publish a book. All right, folks, we'll see you next time on Entrepreneur Experts Cafe. Cheers.